Oi you, it's time for another episode of Dorothy and the Dealer. Let's tune into the conversation.
Hi,
Here we go.
Mills, you sounded very sultry as you said hello to everyone.
Welcome to my podcast. We're going to try and make an effort to have Mitch speak directly into the mic today, aren't we,
I will
Mitch?
speak into the mic. I promise you guys I will speak into the mic. I promise you guys I will speak into the mic.
That's just deliberately annoying to anyone who comments on our podcast.
Anyway, cast your comments on thy...
How you going, guys?
Yeah, good.
That's good.
Yeah,
What's been happening?
Well, this morning I was around at my new bike store that I've gone into partnership with, and we were around there just getting the floors ready and had all the trades in. I loved doing all that stuff. Had the plumbers in. Who's actually my dad. He's going to be doing the plumbing. Had the sparkies in. I won't let anyone near the electricity. And yeah, so it's good. It's, new venture. I love getting into new ventures. I love doing that sort of stuff. We're pretty excited about it. This will be the second shop, and we want to have about 5 shops in the next 2 years, and then the objective will be to flog the whole thing as a going concern.
For me, business has been growing, but I've also had to go through the whole wife getting sick and being isolated and being a single dad for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Business has been fucking tough lately from so many different levels. But the other thing is that there's also so many opportunities in those moments. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the term new normal, and I love it and I hate it.
I don't like it.
I love it and I hate it. And the reason is new normal to me, just what I hear is people that don't see opportunity. So I hear the chance that I can get in there. Because normal to me, when you hear somebody say normal, what they're saying is I have an expectation of how things are supposed to be. And life's never going to give you your expectations.
The new normal, right? Nothing is normal. So there's no such thing as new normal. Everything is changing and shifting and moving all the time. So, it's only new because it's come to your
forefront.
It's within your vision of, or else it's within your sensory world. But it's always, there is no fucking normal.
Don't you find that when somebody says normal, it means they're not in the now? Yeah. Anybody that says normal or new normal or I'm waiting to get back to normal is either thinking about the future or the past. Yeah. Usually the past, which means they're missing all the opportunity in the right now.
I just see the normal as comfort rather than anything else. It's rather than I'd rather just be in my comfort zone rather than the challenge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And in business, comfort is death.
Yes.
That's why they pad the coffin. Yeah.
So speaking about new businesses,
we wanted to talk about different ideas and think we just wanted to. We just wanted to shoot the shit a little bit today about.
I probably clicked on the wrong link on Instagram over the past couple of weeks, right? And I've been getting these.
This could go really wrong.
No. Look, I fucking love my Instagram feed. I actually really like my Instagram feed. Now, once I've worked out that if it'll trend on the things that you really inspire you. And so my Instagram feed is full of really inspiring stuff. But I clicked on this link that was about, young people that go in and, they're using online shops and marketing to earn, big money, what you would call big money, and they're going in and going, right, if you take this book and actually they did it with one of the agenda calendars, right? What do we call them? You said
you're on your own here, buddy. I can't figure out what you're saying.
We sell the fucking things.
Like planners, yeah.
Okay. So, but I can't remember what the online version of them was, what they called them online, but you can go in and you can put that digital planner up, and then people go in and buy digital planners.
Yes, you send that to me.
So they went in and they copied the digital planner, right? They get the copy of the digital planner, they change the name of it, and they go, right, look, this one sold 6,000 copies at X amount of dollars, and it done it in this time period. So, so there's going to be an industry in going in and copying things and using, like art, word art, planners, anything, and then just remarketing them as your own product, but on different websites. And it was really interesting to watch. I was thinking, fuck, like that is an industry for young people to get into that could really be profitable.
And I think what will happen, because if you look at a trend, right, every time you see something like that, a counter trend will take place as well. And so that'll actually draw back a whole new wave of people to get like physical planners and really tactile approaches to stuff. And like anytime you see it, and sometimes the more profitable business is in the counter trend, not in the trend, because there's less people that compete in that space.
Right.
And so when you're doing the future projection, you always want to look at both sides of it. You want to go, okay, so there's where I think the trend is. Is there a counter trend to this? And if so, where is it and how profitable is that counter trend?
Yeah.
Like we look at as social media kind of takes off and we become more and more digital and more like universally connected.
Right.
You've seen a return of yoga. You've seen a return of nature retreats, of disconnect zones, right? We've seen that come back. And I mean, that was around the 60s and 70s. And suddenly there's this resurgence.
Right.
Because it's the counter trend.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there'll be things like that. I think there's a lot of services that will allow you to white label and manage time. So like the coaching industry, what we do with the group coaching, I think there'll be companies out there that create group coaching platforms and group delivery platforms that individuals can tie into to manage their time. And so they'll sell it as their group coaching. Somebody else will deliver it for them. For them in relation to them while they just go off and deal with the one-on-one. I think there's a whole bunch of industries that are time poor right now where you'll see almost this shared service and delivery that sits in the back end. I think that'll be definitely one of the trends.
I don't think I understand what you mean by that. I'm just sitting here trying to process that.
So if we look at the coaching industry, right?
Yeah.
So there is a whole, as coaching tries to distinguish itself and give more and more value for what it does, it adds things like group coaching, online platforms, share things. And I think there'll be companies that continually develop and recreate content in this, like to be delivered in a group that will then allow you to brand that as your own. Kind of what you were saying with the planner.
Yeah.
You'll do it. They'll actually deliver that stuff to the client in your name, and you will just do the one-on-one component where you have to be involved in that. I think that'll be a future as well, kind of like an online franchise type thing.
Right.
Yeah, clever.
So we were going to talk about like what we kind of think is the future. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so many different things about the future, like in terms of ideas that you can see them starting to germinate now that you were talking about before about how you see life progressing, going forward.
Absolutely.
Do you want to talk about any of those?
Look, somebody asked me the other day if I was, slightly younger than I am because I've just recently celebrated a birthday.
What the hell did they mean by that?
I just celebrated a birthday and they said if you were like still young, if you were still in school, what would you like? What would you tell a kid right now?
To do right now.
Like if it were you in school, what would you? So this is a younger person that was considering going off to university. And they're like, if it were you, what would you do? And I'm like, I'd get into audio programming for sure. I get into learning how to use voice commands to program things because I really think that'll be a future.
Like Siri.
Yeah, like things like
Alexa.
Siri that will because smart homes and these things are already here, these AI, but you still have to physically program them. So somebody has to do it and then you buy that programming. I think we'll be able to program these things on the fly using voice commands. I don't think, future computers will even have keyboards. I think you'll talk in and it'll do dialogue and transform.
That just drives me actually thinking about that.
Yeah, because I think one thing we've learned the last little while is if you don't have to, you probably don't want to touch shit. And so, a lot of things will happen off voice command. I think, we'll stop actually touching things where we don't really need to. We could have
Mitch
a computer
does that heaps already. Like, I don't use Siri as much as you use Siri. He uses Siri all of the time for all of the things.
But I think the
But I
ability
love
to
touching
program,
things though. Like I'll lick anything. Like, honestly, I just don't get it.
Nice.
I'm like,
what is it you're
wrong?
imagining that microphone to be at the moment?
Oh my God. That's not what I meant. I meant like toilet seats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But I honestly think what'll happen though is he won't just use Siri in the future. I think he will program Siri to do things that he needs to have done on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
He'll be able to program Siri. Right now, you're reliant on what Siri can and cannot do.
Yeah.
I think the future will be you're going to have this base model and you'll be able to program it using your voice. And I would, if I was in school, I'd be learning that technology right now.
I was thinking about that. We were speaking, as you were saying that, I was thinking about the fact that, some of the people, a lot of the people who are quite famous in the industries that they're in now, they're doing it at a very young age because they started at a very young age. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like the most popular or the most watched YouTube presenter, Mr. Beast, I think.
Yeah.
He started when he was 11. Do you know what I mean? And I came across somebody else the other day that's like 20 or 21 or something, and is, you know, retired already, but based on stuff that they were doing right from an early age. You know.
Yeah, get in
early, or being.
You don't want to be first. You want to
Yeah.
know it's a trend,
Yeah.
but you want to get in pretty early. So
Pretty early, yeah.
not necessarily first. Usually the person that goes first takes all the arrows. They're the ones that like learn and pave the way for everybody else.
Yeah.
But there's a famous video on leadership that really said like the most important person was the second one.
The second one. Yeah.
Yeah, not the first one. The first one's generally can go down with arrows, but if the second one is the one that actually starts
He
the
makes
trend.
the lone nut a leader.
Yeah.
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 He hands the power, empowers the other,
Yeah.
the second person.
And there's so much business advice out there that talks about the importance of going first. But like if you follow the research and you look at the examples, the people that go first don't typically survive.
Yeah.
Go first after that guy.
Yeah. Be the one that's left, like the earliest one that's left.
Yeah.
Let the first guy go in and learn and make all the mistakes and take all the arrows, and then you come in right after. So you want to find that trend. You want to find the trend as opposed to create it.
I think that something that I notice is big at the moment, so I don't know how it's going to keep going, but, you know, there's a lot of people making money by buying items off places and then getting them drop shipped elsewhere. So there's a lot of people.
From Alibaba and then drop shipping it,
and then having it on Amazon, not even having to have a particular store, like having to have a storefront and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of that happening now. I think a lot of people are utilising that. So I don't know how that's going to go in the future, but already, like, I mean, there's so many things I wouldn't consider buying online, but there's so many things I do. Do you know what I mean? And so I think the more and more we get down that track, a lot of people will be using those sorts of things. You know?
I think that's on that same trend. I think there's a few things to look at there, right? We already know that the supply chain as it currently stands, it's fallen apart. And so I don't see any feasible way in terms of what technology we have available to us of fixing it. So I think you're going to see manufacturing traditionally is like a custom built facility designed to do one thing. I think you're going to see the rise of multifaceted manufacturing facilities that can do smaller orders and many different things. And you're going to see, I think probably in the next 10 years, you're going to see things like 3D printing come into the mainstream. They won't be just for big businesses anymore. I think they'll drop in a lot of this stuff. You will order it online. The image will get sent to your 3D printer and it'll print it. And
Isn't that bonkers?
I didn't think about that, but yeah.
So you order an M16.
They're always taking it to the.
But I mean, think about it. You think
literally
about
taking
it.
everything to an extreme level today.
But you think about it. You can literally.
Is this the type of stuff you think about when you're looking at toilet seat?
A toy one. A toy one.
Yeah.
Here, Ollie, I'll get you an
look,
M16.
I do believe that because they've got technology now for 3D printers that can use many different compounds. And you think about the stuff you buy online. Most of it is a product, right? It's not a food. Like, they might be able to do it with food, but right now they can't. But like most of the products, they could be recreated right there on the spot. Yeah,
I think out of all these lockdowns that happened, I think the way in which businesses pivoted have become, a solid way for people to operate. They realised a lot. We were at a restaurant in Melbourne, and it's quite an infamous restaurant who had they had a big following, and Chin Chin. And when the lockdowns happened, he said we just went upstairs, and he said we just packaged up all of our food, and then we sent it to people. We could get it to them within a pretty prompt time, and that was around the country. And then people they opened it up and cooked it all themselves at home.
Heated it up.
Heated it up, but they said it wasn't prepared by our chefs.
Wasn't quite the same because it wasn't being done in the restaurant. Yeah. But they even, because we don't have a Chin Chin here in Perth, but they had trucks already coming over here for different things, so they just utilised them and sent food across. So people were ordering from Perth. From a Melbourne restaurant. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's just clever.
I heard a story about a butcher in the US who created a drive-through in his butcher shop.
Really?
and he was packaging up meat so that people didn't have to get out of the car, like a drive-through.
Wow.
And he said his business actually 3 times in the amount of time because, you didn't have to go in and wait, and he was just shipping it out. And then he moved on to, like, if you want to do steak tonight, he, like, packaged up the potatoes, put it all in, handed it to you ready to go on the barbecue.
That's awesome, isn't it?
It's very clever.
Like, there were some people that really did well. Like, and there's always those opportunities. You just got to let go of what you expect should be happening right now. I think in terms of the business world, one of the things I absolutely think are going to happen in the near future is as you see more and more freelancers and entrepreneurs coming into the market, like, I mean, that sector of the like freelancer one-off army of one entrepreneur has grown by 20% in the last year. I think one of the things is really complicated in terms of just the mechanics of starting a business. You got to register the business name. You got to figure out your tax system. You got to. I think that'll just be a one-off app. You'll pay like $495 or something like that, and it'll just walk you through. It'll be a workflow app.
Oh, that's a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
might even do that one.
There you go.
We're giving people ideas.
That's a friggin' clever idea.
What other things are you guessing is going to happen in the future?
Just let me ask a question though before you go there. Do you remember years when you, I don't know, for me, I remember when ideas would come to me, it was really strange. It was like I'd get an idea, and what had happened is I'd have the idea in my head, and then I wouldn't execute on the idea, and then like 6 months later, I'd be like, hold on a minute, I thought of rollerblades first. That literally went.
I know I'm going to get some eye rolls here, but I actually thought of the Kindle before the Kindle came out. Because I was a reader, and I was lugging around this big bag of books, and it was like killing my bag, and I'd sit on public transport and read. I thought, I wish it, and I saw a guy sitting with his laptop on his lap, and I went, I wish all my books were in the laptop. Yeah. And I could just carry around the laptop and read all the books.
Do you know what? Talking about counter trends, I refuse to get Kindle because I love books. Like I love the tactile. Like, I think bookstores, like, I love going into bookstores. I love having a bookshelf. I love having the physical. That doesn't mean I won't listen to books at different times, but I just can't get a Kindle. It's just, I mean, listen to me saying now, in like 3 months' time, look at me, I'll be walking around with a Kindle. But I just love the physical. I love having the book in my hand. I love it.
I think there's a bit of wisdom in the whole concept of, don't follow trends, create them, and others will follow them, I think that there's a bit to be said about that sort of thing, because trends
about the
and
counter
fads,
trends, you mean?
Yeah, because trends and fads fade out. They tend to fade out.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? You're watching now a lot of kickback on this. I mean, you're watching it in companies and businesses, and this binary stuff. There's a huge kickback with it now, and so you're watching comedians who are just not playing into it are becoming super fucking popular. They're obviously getting a lot of kickback from the binary guys. I don't even know what that trend is.
What are we talking about?
Well, where they want to be recognised as neither male nor female, just a person. And
right, non-binary.
Non-binary, but I think that that there's a pushback on that through. You're watching it happen through comedy. Where the comedians who are just don't give a flying shite what anybody thinks are just super, super famous. They're just building huge audiences, and obviously they're getting kickback from the other side. But I think that is going to phase out. That everybody's going to hopefully come to their senses and go, "This is fucking nonsense."
Well, look, it's like, I'm not. Am I going to say what's right or what's wrong with that? But yeah, I do agree that there is always a counter trend, and that's that's where you want to like. Where possible, if you can catch it and you're skilled enough to take advantage of that new trend, and somebody else, I just want to really, when it's a new trend, you do not want to be the first person. Like, we look at Airbnb and we go, oh yeah, they changed the way we did the gig economy, took over, staying somewhere and reservations and accommodation. Right. They weren't the first. They weren't even the second. They were like not even in the top 5. They were just the one that owned it. Other people paved the way.
Yeah.
You're seeing that already. Uber's paved the way. Uber wasn't even the first, but they're paving the way. They're the ones taking all the arrows for all the guys that'll come afterwards and really own that. I mean, that's.
I mean, if you like, I was being is like hundreds of years old. That's a trend that has been around for a long time. It's just that somebody took it seriously and realized. I think the story was the guys were they were in New York and they were staying in an attic.
No, they what happened was they were trying to make money and they were broke.
Right.
And there was a big conference in town, and they saw a paper article that said there's not enough accommodation to give all these people. And they went, well, you should let them stay here. We'll feed them breakfast and we'll show them around the city. Right. And then he's like, where would they stay? And he goes, well, get some air mattresses. We'll go buy some air mattresses and throw it on the floor. And he goes, so like a B&B. And then the one guy went, no, like an Airbnb.
Right.
And that's where it all kind of came from. And then it suffered. It went bankrupt again. And then what they were is their skill set was in being designers. And so what they did is they're like, we're going to bring our design element to this.
Right.
And so they created a customer experience that blew every other player in this industry away and basically owned the industry from there. They weren't the first. It wasn't a clever idea. It came from desperation. It came from we need to pay the bills this month.
Yeah.
So what other trends, Mike, before we finish up, what other trends do you see, or what are you guessing, future guessing about?
I think any depreciating asset like a car, a lawnmower, that type of thing, it'll come down to shared economies. So these will be owned assets by companies that will then lend them out. So I don't think you'll own a car in the future unless you're doing it purely from a status standpoint. I think what will happen is you will have an organized car through your app that'll show up outside your house and drop you off. That means even the design of houses and garages will all change. There's a whole lot in that. Satellite communication and the ability to map out routes and map out roads and talk to one another in vehicles. So anybody that plays in that space will definitely, I'd be looking at that in the future.
You were talking about self-analysis. What were you talking before we got on live? What do you mean about self-analysis?
Well, that's a huge industry kicking off.
In health. I think.
Health. Right.
I think in terms of health, I think what you're seeing with the whole COVID and rat tests and PCRs, I think what you're going to find is they're going to find diagnosis tools that we actually perform on ourselves, and that'll free up practitioners, medical practitioners, to simply execute treatment plans as opposed to spending all the time talking and analyzing. And so I think that's one of the ways you will kind of take, because if we'd fought anything during these last 3 years that was actually fatal, our whole medical system would have collapsed. And I think everybody knows that now. And so what will happen is I think the diagnosis side that takes up so much of the time of the medical practitioners will be slowly pushed out to us. We'll get tools that we'll pick up in a shop and self-diagnose.
Well, you look at the tele-doctor services now that have come about. Those guys are inundated. You can't get into them for 10 days, 14 days. You can't get a 30-minute call with them. Yeah. Absolutely inundated. And look at now what's after happening here with the medicinal marijuana thing. So there's a couple of companies over east that are prescribing non-THC and THC medicinal marijuana. And we have a doctor buddy of ours that's working for him. These guys are earning like $300 an hour. $300 an hour. But they're doctors, and he just does literally from his lounge. You know, somebody rings in, this is my prognosis, and he diagnoses and then administers non-THC marijuana and THC
So I think the
oils
future of that is
CBD
that's not
oils.
Sustainable. You can't charge $300 for the average population, and even then you're still going to get overloaded. So I think, honestly, the future of medical will be that you'll self-diagnose. There's a couple of factors with that. Is if you start to feel symptoms, you're not going to go out into public. You're going to do that from home. So until you diagnose, you're going to do it from home. Some of those treatment plans are really just, a lot of those are just rest and diet and things like that, which will keep you from spreading. I really think self-diagnosis tools, anybody in the medical industry right now, that's probably the future.
What do you reckon, like, if you're a business that's seeing, all these changes, all of these, like you start to see, like, in everything we've talked about doesn't seem too far out of the ordinary because there's already sort of some sort of level of it happening now. So as a business, what do you do, or how do you consider those things, knowing that the future is going to have like those types of changes? Do you know what I mean? Like you talk about the seasons in your business. You talk about the fact that this economy goes in cycles. Do you think that there's do you suggest a way of being able just to stay on top of that so that you can, I don't know, because there'd be a fine line between following a trend, right? Creating a trend, going and doing one of the counter trends, because some of that's happening already. What do you recommend? Have you got like some sort of blanket statement or rule that you can help with?
Look, it's not a quick answer to that. Like, if I just gave a quick answer, is you have to take a break and you have to actually sit down, look, reconnect with your mission, and then look at what's happening out there and go. But you've got to step outside of the day-to-day running your business, putting out the fires and things like that. Like we do this thing with our business clients called a legacy map, where every 3 months we really do pause, get reconnected to what is it we're really trying to do and what's changed since the last time we looked at it. What's out there available to us? What are the trends? What's happened out there? What are the triggers in the economy? How do we stop and re-look at this and replan? What's available to us now that wasn't there 3 months ago?
I think that's important in the sense that, like, even based on, how, I teach the wealth principles, all that sort of stuff. I think it's important because what you're doing then is you're in charge of that on a regular basis. So one of the things people notice with what happened in 2020 is that happened for a lot of people because something happened on the outside and it forced people to shift what was going on in their businesses because they could never have necessarily predicted it. But if you're used to having those conversations, if you're used to, if you put it as a part of your system that you sit down and you work on it and you look at what's happening, it's just a natural progression of the next phase. So it's just a matter of systemizing, looking and checking in.
And if you're looking, there's often some warning shots. Not always. Like 2020
was a bit different. Yeah.
Look, there was some parts of 2020 definitely had some warning shots prior to coming. Like the economy definitely had some warning shots coming. Yeah. We didn't know it was going to fail because of the supply chain had some warning shots. All COVID did was speed it up.
Yeah.
In terms of the COVID and the leak and what happened, what didn't happen, that kind of came without a warning. But
having said that, it was November one year and then March the next year before we were shut down.
It's called COVID-19 because it happened in 2019. Yeah.
So if we anyone who was looking at their business in November, December would have been able to start to see that there was the potential of something happening, right?
Yeah, there was warning signs coming from WHO that this was bad in November of 2019.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to be said for following, having a plan and making sure that you're re-looking at your plan. And one of the things I get a lot from clients is they think, oh my God, I'm bored of reading my plan and reading my mission statement. And I'm like, that's because you're not altering it.
You're not
if you're not evolving it and doing something with it every time you read it and it actually becomes interesting as you start, at first you're excited and it makes you a bit nervous and it's like, oh fuck, because I'm taking on a lot here or I've got this big vision. But as long as you work it and play with it and manipulate it and take pieces out. But if you don't do that...
I think the magic's in executing it. If you're just reading it and hoping it comes, that's when you get bored.
Exactly, yeah.
But if you don't, if you're not reading it and taking things out and watching what you're taking out and adjusting it, because otherwise it sits there and it's stale. You've done that. I know I've achieved that. I know I've done it. So
what's the point?
What's the point?
There you go. That was our little bit of future guessing. Is Marvin the Martian going to join us? Do you reckon? He was so cute, Marvin the Martian. Do you reckon?
Mitchell loved this comment, but in all honesty, for us to now, with what we know, think that we're the only live species in the universe.
Absolutely. It's another story, but that's a whole other podcast.
Should we just start that now?
No, definitely not.
I love that shit.
All right. Okay, if you're looking to bulletproof your business, here at MJB Seminars, we have the tools and strategies to supercharge your profits and stop you from becoming one of the 97% of organisations that fail within their first 10 years.
So you can learn more about this truly unique system by liking and following us at MJB Seminars over on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to Dorothy and the Dealer podcast so you never miss a business episode again.
Registrations for our business course are by application, and you can express your interest by emailing evolve, EVOLVE, at mjbseminars.com.au.